Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. In our top story, Goldman Sachs has upgraded Philippine stocks to overweight. Bloomberg reports the American Investment Bank raised their recommendation after the Philippines benchmark stock index closed 1.8% higher Friday, leading gains among Asia's major equity gauges. For the year, the Philippine share prices have risen 3.5%. Investopedia says an overweight investment is an asset or industry sector that comprises a higher than normal percentage of a portfolio or an index. An investor might choose to devote a greater portion of the portfolio to a sector that seems particularly promising, or an investor might go overweight on defensive stocks and bonds at a time when prices are volatile. The Philippines has launched its first ever interest rate swaps market, a move aimed at enhancing bond liquidity and providing investors with better risk management tools. The Bankers Association of the Philippines pushed through with a schedule to open the peso IRS market after the release of the updated International Swaps and Derivatives Association or ISDA definitions last Friday. The Philippine Overnight Reference Rate or ORR is included in the ISDA. The BAP developed the ORR based on the Philippine Central Bank's variable overnight repurchase rate. BAP's Open Market Committee Chair Paul Favila said the peso IRS market will further develop the local market's yield curves to support the pricing requirements of short-term credit instruments such as loans in the market. Overseas, Europe's economy has left stagnation behind but is headed for only modest growth in the coming months. In a report seen by the Associated Press, the European Union's Executive Commission said the bloc's economy remains at risk from protectionist moves by major trading partners. Now, while consumers are regaining some of the purchasing power they lost to inflation, European Economic Commissioner Paolo Gentiloni said a possible protectionist turn in U.S. trade policy would be extremely harmful for both economies. As U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has often talked about imposing new tariffs or import taxes on foreign goods, the EU plans to engage with the new administration with a spirit of cooperation, but also a willingness to defend open trade. And the Commission report said that 20 countries that use the euro are forecast to see growth of 0.8% this year and 1.3% next year. The UN's top climate official has called on G20 leaders to accelerate climate financing as talks stall at the COP29 summit in Baku. The G20 meeting, which starts today, coincides with the COP29 UN summit in Azerbaijan, where negotiators have so far hit an impasse on climate finance. Now, as with previous gatherings, this year's G20 summit in Brazil is expected to touch on various issues, from addressing poverty and hunger to the reform of global institutions. But likely taking center stage is the issue of global warming. In a letter, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Simon Stiles, warned that developing nations are falling behind in access to crucial funding. The gap is particularly striking in African and Pacific Island nations, where the promised $100 billion in annual climate finance from developed countries has yet to materialize. G20 nations are responsible for 80% of global emissions and are urged to step up efforts. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says while all countries must do their part, the G20 must lead in efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
And I have come to Rio with a simple message. G20 leaders must lead. And G20 countries, by definition, have tremendous economic clout and they yield massive diplomatic leverage. They must use it to tackle key global problems.
While some countries push for quicker action, others say domestic economic challenges are limiting their contributions. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his outgoing U.S. counterpart Joe Biden hold their final meeting. The two leaders met for about 2 hours on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC summit in Lima, Peru. Biden and Xi acknowledged their differences but emphasized the need to maintain U.S. and China ties. Xi also vowed to work with the incoming administration of Donald Trump.
拓展合作，管控分歧。
China-U.S. relations have gone through ups and downs, but under the joint stewardship, the two sides have also been engaged in fruitful dialogue and cooperation, and the relationship has been kept stable on the whole. When the two countries treat each other as partners and friends, seek common ground while shelving differences and help each other succeed, our relationship would make considerable progress. But if they take each other as rival or adversary, pursue vicious competition and seek to hurt each other, we would roil the relationship or even set it back.
We haven't always agreed, but our conversations have always been candid and always been frank. We have never kidded one another. We've been level with one another. I think that's vital. These conversations prevent miscalculations, and they ensure the competition between our two countries will not veer into conflict. Be competition, not conflict. That's our responsibility to our people, and as you indicated, to the people around the world. We are the most important alliance or most important relationship in the entire world. And how we get along together is going to impact the rest of the world. And so, our two countries cannot let any of this competition veer into conflict.
The talks came 2 months before Trump assumes office. President-elect has threatened to slap tariffs of up to 60% on U.S. imports of Chinese goods as part of his protectionist trade policies. China has just taken decisive action to retrench or entrench its position in Latin America. The BBC reports a new China-backed Megaport has the potential to create whole new trade routes that will bypass North America entirely. Chinese President Xi Jinping attended the inauguration of the Chancay Airport on the Peruvian coast this week, seen as an indication of just how seriously China takes the development. Xi was in Peru for the annual meeting of the APEC Forum, but all eyes were on Chancay and what it says about China's growing assertiveness in a region that the U.S. has traditionally seen as its sphere of influence. Now, as seasoned observers see it, Washington is now paying the price for years of indifference toward its neighbors and their needs. Russia has increased reselling gas to European countries through third-party deals that, despite directly cutting off supply to Austria. Gazprom on Saturday halted supplies to OMV after the Austrian company threatened to impound some of the Russian state firm's gas as compensation for an arbitration it had won over a contractual dispute. Sources say Russian gas exports to Europe jumped 20% last month compared to September, using countries like Turkey as intermediaries. Austria, which relied on 80% of its gas from Russia before the war in Ukraine, is now struggling to diversify its energy supply. Energy analysts warn this move may undermine Europe's sanctions efforts. However, Moscow argues it's meeting contractual obligations. Flows to Austria were still suspended on Sunday, but the overall daily supply to Europe via Ukraine, the main transit route for Russian gas to the EU, would remain at 42.4 million cubic meters per day, and Gazprom confirmed that's around the same volume as usual. It did not comment further. India's Tata Group has officially acquired Pegatron's iPhone assembly plant in Tamil Nadu. Sources tell Reuters the deal, worth $125 million, boosts India's role as a manufacturing hub for Apple amid efforts to diversify away from China. The plant of the Taiwanese contract manufacturer employs 15,000 workers and is expected to create an additional 5,000 jobs. Apple, sourcing 7% of its iPhones from India, could double by 2025, underlining the country's importance. Apple is increasingly looking to diversify its supply chain beyond China. The The price of gold has suddenly become not so golden since Donald Trump's victory in the presidential election, losing some of its luster as the best performing investments of the year. Gold fell more than 4% in the 4 days since Election Day, when the broad U.S. stock market climbed nearly 4%. That's left gold at $2,618 per ounce, down from a record of roughly $2,800 set late last month. The largest exchange-traded fund that tracks the price of gold has seen its gain for 2024 drop back below 27% from nearly 35% a couple of weeks earlier. Now, after ripping higher for much of this year, prices of gold have declined, coinciding with the strengthening of the U.S. dollar against other major currencies. Tariffs and trade wars instigated by the United States could push down the value of the euro and other countries' currencies. The strong U.S. dollar makes it more expensive for buyers using those other currencies to purchase gold. Donald Trump has named oil and gas industry executive Chris Wright as his pick to lead the U.S. Energy Department. BBC reports he is expected to fulfill the president-elect's promise to increase fossil fuel production, an aim summed by the campaign slogan, "Drill, Baby, Drill." Wright is the founder and CEO of Liberty Energy, which serves companies extracting oil and gas from shale fields in a process known as fracking. Trump wrote in a statement that Chris is one of the pioneers who helped launch the American shale revolution that fueled American energy independence and transformed the global energy markets and geopolitics. Wright is a climate change skeptic and previously said he does not care where energy comes from as long as it is secure, reliable, affordable, and betters human lives. Wright's appointment is a win for the fossil fuel industry, with Trump having pledged to increase production of U.S. fossil fuels rather than investing in renewable energy sources such as wind power, a goal Wright will be instrumental in driving. The president-elect has pledged to open areas such as the Arctic wilderness to oil drilling, which he argues would lower energy costs. The ASEAN Plus 3 group warned of financial stability risks from its heavy reliance on the U.S. dollar. According to the ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Officer AMRO, over 80% of trade invoices in the region are in U.S. dollars, while more than half of banks' cross-border assets and liabilities are dollar-denominated. AMRO points out this dependency exposes the region to funding stress, which typically intensifies during high market volatility and currency depreciation expectations. Now, as the pressure increases, borrowing costs rise, access to funding becomes limited, and foreign exchange hedging services become restricted. Now, AMRO says boosting the use of local currencies in regional trade and financial transactions can help mitigate such challenges from external shocks. More updates on business and economy in a moment. Stay on BNC and follow the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. Turkey has fined Amazon-owned Twitch 2 million lira, or approximately $70,000, following a major data breach that exposed sensitive user information. The breach, which reportedly compromised passwords and payments, affected thousands of users. Turkish government called the penalty a warning to big tech companies to comply with data privacy laws. Twitch apologized and stated that it has implemented stronger security measures to prevent future incidents. Critics argue the fine is too low to deter repeated violations, while others welcome Turkey's efforts to hold tech giants accountable. NVIDIA, the leader of artificial intelligence chips, is facing reports of overheating in its newest server systems. Industry insiders say the issue is affecting high-end H100 and A100 chips, which power AI operations for major tech giants. With demand for AI infrastructure skyrocketing, these issues could disrupt deployments. NVIDIA says they're investigating and working with partners to resolve the problem. Netflix says 60 million households worldwide watched the much-anticipated boxing match between social media influencer Logan Paul and former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. According to company data, the event peaked at 65 million streams, marking one of the streamer's biggest live sports events to date. 50 million households tuned in for the co-main event between Ireland's lightweight champion Katie Taylor and Puerto Rico's featherweight champion Amanda Serrano. And Netflix saying the bout is likely to be the most watched professional women's sporting event in U.S. history. The event further signals Netflix's shift into sports broadcasting as it aims to compete with traditional networks. Critics question whether live sports fit Netflix's model, but executives say the strategy is paying off. With sports advertising growing 20% this year, Netflix plans to expand its sports portfolio. Well, Netflix experienced a major outage this weekend, leaving thousands of users in the United States unable to stream content for about 6 hours. Down Detector, which collates status reports from a number of sources, showed that there were fewer than 100 user reports of problems accessing Netflix. At the peak of the outage, which began Friday, there were more than 90,000 reports of problems with Netflix. According to Down Detector, on the night when viewers were tuning in to watch a highly anticipated boxing match between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, which Paul won, Netflix said it had no immediate comment to response to a request from Reuters. The platform has suffered outages during live or highly anticipated events in the past, with spikes in user traffic often contributing. ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, has hit a $300 billion valuation amid growing uncertainty over a potential U.S. ban. According to the Wall Street Journal, ByteDance reached out to investors in recent weeks, offering a price of $180.70 per share. The people said the current offer price is an increase of 12.9% from the per-share price of $160 in their last buyback program. The company's growth is driven by strong revenue outside the U.S., despite national security concerns. Lawmakers in Washington are pushing to limit TikTok's operations over data privacy fears, while China remains defiant. Critics argue a ban could hurt American creators relying on the platform. Unfazed by political turmoil, ByteDance continues to expand its product ecosystem. A hacker has been sentenced to 5 years in a U.S. prison for laundering the proceeds of one of the biggest ever cryptocurrency thefts. Ilya Lichtenstein pleaded guilty last year in the case involving the Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange being hacked in 2016 and the theft of almost 120,000 Bitcoin. The BBC reports he laundered the stolen cryptocurrency with the help of his wife, Heather Morgan, who used the alias Razzle Khan to promote her hip-hop music. At the time of the theft, the Bitcoin was worth around $70 million, but has risen in value to more than $4.5 billion by the time they were arrested. At today's prices, they would be worth more than double that. Now, the $3.6 billion worth of assets recovered in the case was the biggest financial seizure in the Department of Justice history. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said that Lichtenstein, who has been in prison since his arrest in February 2022, has expressed remorse for his actions. He also said that he hopes to apply his skills to fight cybercrime after serving his sentence. Finally, a long-awaited smart city in Greece finally takes shape. Located in a former airport along the coastline of Athens, the Ellinikon initiative is one of Europe's largest urban regeneration projects. It will feature multiple infrastructure, including villas, 2 hotels, shopping centers, and a marina. It will also house Athens' tallest skyscraper, the Riviera Tower, which is due to be completed by the end of 2026. The whole project is expected to provide a huge boost to the Greek economy.
The first phase, which includes all things that will make it visitable and habitable, we have an aggressive goal to finish it by the end of 2027. For Greece, it's a huge opportunity to put itself on the map globally with the development of Ellinikon. It's going to add more than 2 percentage points on the GDP, more than 14 billion in taxes, and it's going to add about 70,000 to 80,000 jobs. And the most important thing is to build the credibility of the country abroad that was hurt during the crisis years, and do something on which foreign capital can be employed.
And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionaire News channel, always on top.